Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 100th episode of VOX Vomitus. I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of the award-winning novel Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, as well as Pretty Ugly and the Hotel series. Joining me today, as always, as she has for the past 99 episodes before this, Allison Martine, author of the Bourbon books, which includes Dibs, Since September, Move On Melinda, and Climb the Salmon Ladder, which was recently released. With us today is a very special guest for our 100th episode. We have not had him on the show for a while, so it's going to be fun to catch up with S.A. Cosby. We just know him as Sean, our hilarious drinking buddy friend. You all know him as the New York Times bestselling author of RAZORBLADE TEARS. His books, Blacktop Wasteland and RAZORBLADE TEARS, have won every single award possible, I feel like, at this point. So, Sean, welcome back to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. And yeah, I've won quite a few awards. I am actually as shocked as anybody else. So
see, I feel like I'm not shocked. Last time we had you here on VOX Vomitus, Blacktop Wasteland was taking off. It had not won all of the awards that it was about to, but it was just about to. It was post Stephen King tweeting about it, but pre-winning all the awards. So you've had quite the last year and a half, I would say.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching an episode of Game of Thrones like before the last season, so the first 7
when it was still good.
Yeah, clarify that there.
But yeah. But there's a scene where Robert Baratheon says to Ned Stark, I think it's in the first episode, he says, "I was never so alive as when I was winning this throne, and never so dead as when I was sitting upon it." I don't feel exactly like that, but
there's a Sean, are you like, I wish I was dead. No. Sean, do we need to help?
No. But there's there's a shift from when you're writing. Like when I wrote Blacktop Wasteland, I didn't have an agent, I didn't have a contract. I just wanted to write it. So I threw everything in the book that I liked without any expectations or anxiety. And so after Blacktop, but really after RAZORBLADE, like Blacktop was here, and then RAZORBLADE went like there.
RAZORBLADE, you were on billboards in Times Square. Like,
yeah, I hope nobody peed on them. But
I mean, in Times Square, I would say I would want that. I'd be like, I hope it became like a bathroom for like the weird Elmo that lives in Times Square, the one that like already smells like urine.
And that's a really weird goal that you have. Your aspirations
that's my goal.
Are not like normal people aspirations. I mean, I just know, and so this is a little known secret, that the first time Sean was on the show, I was panicked because it had just followed me thinking one of our guests had gotten scared away by DMing me beforehand, where I was like, yes, we're excited to have you on the show. And then we heard from their people that they weren't coming on the show. And I was like, I just scared away a guest. And while we were still working things out, Jen had reached out to Sean, and Sean's like, sure, I'll come on the show. So we did a back-to-back thing. But I literally had been like, yeah, I'm kind of vaguely aware of this person. And Jen was saying, his book is going to be getting buzz. Just you wait. And then your book exploded. It's everywhere. Your next book came out. It's everywhere too. It's getting peed on by Elmos, maybe. Pictures, not the actual book. It's winning all the awards. And then I finally got to read RAZORBLADE TEARS, and I'm just going, this should win more awards. Are there more awards we can just make up and give to you? Because the book just blew me away.
Well,
and
I feel like
deserved all these.
Sean just barely missed our 2-year anniversary episode when we gave out fake awards called the Voxies.
Mm-hmm.
So we could totally give Sean one of the Voxies.
A bowling trophy, possibly peed on by an Elmo.
But yeah,
I don't know.
It's a golden award.
Yeah.
But no,
no. I think that's a different type of thing.
But when I started the book I'm working on now, it took me a long time to really get in the groove because I had all this self-doubt about, oh, it's got to be as good as Razorblade. It's got to be as good as Blacktop. It's got to do the same things that those books did. And
It's
it took
got
me
to
a
be a
long time
Sean
to really,
Cosby book. Like it's got to be this thing because now
And
you're more than a writer.
Yeah.
You're a brand.
Ooh.
And that is panic inducing.
Yeah, I hate the terminology, but I think, and I had a conversation with a good friend of mine who actually has been a guest on the show before, Eric Pruitt, and he and I were talking, and Eric gave me a really good piece of advice. He said, it doesn't have to be as good as Blacktop or Razorblade. It's just got to be good. And I think that's a very, in a very concise way, what you have to do as a writer, as a creative person. You can't worry about what you did before. You have to keep stretching, keep pushing yourself. But regardless of that, the work has to be good. And I think what I'm working on now is good. I'm in the home stretch. You can't see it, but my whiteboard is over here with the last 9 plot points I have to get in. So,
and you've been teasing us on social media.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I love posting those. I love posting those little excerpts.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm just like, I cannot wait for this book. But it makes me, I'll say, as a neurotic writer who, before you popped on the live stream, Allison and I were sitting here going, this is what we're working on now. And I was saying, I'm so thankful that I love my agent because I am like crippled with self-doubt at this moment in the process of my book. Because I think much like Blacktop Wasteland, the things that Allison and I have written so far were written all out of like love, and we didn't have expectations.
We've gone far off that deep end a long time ago. That ship has sailed.
And then all of a sudden you start thinking, well, are people in an airport going to want to buy this book before they get on a 6-hour flight?
I don't know. All I know is I don't know, Sean, when you have time to knock those plot points off the whiteboard, because every time I turn around, you're at bougie hotels and saying you're like, should be bougie, but this time I'm going to be. I was laughing so hard at that. And you have been nominated and gotten so many awards. I feel like more of your time is taken up accepting awards and going to these places than it possibly can doing the writing. So, I mean, if you have it wouldn't be sophomore.
Let me tell you,
your third book. It's acceptable. You're like, I was too busy saying my thank you speeches.
I was too busy talking to Dennis Lehane.
Seriously.
I had to go to New York for the Thriller Thriller Awards, for Thriller Fest. And they put us up in this really nice hotel. Oh my God. I don't want to give the hotel a commercial because they're not compensating me. Yeah, the Evelyn is this beautiful hotel. It's this gorgeous,
it's named
Art
after
Deco, diesel punk style hotel.
She's my favorite. I hate to say this, like my favorite dead silent film Ziegfeld Follies girl. I did a painting with her in it like a million years ago. She's in my art book. I'm like, I love Evelyn Nesbit. And when you were saying, I'm at the Evelyn, I'm like, oh, that's named after Evelyn Nesbit.
But it was so great because that hotel has got so much character and so much aesthetic beauty. And then like the bar is gorgeous. The bar makes you feel like you just step right into The Great Gatsby. Then the lobby is this huge, beautiful, like I said, this sort of John Wick continental lobby. It's a beautiful place. And I remember going back after the award ceremony and working on the book I'm working on now. And a friend of mine messaged me. He was like, hey, you coming out? I was like, yeah, I just got to finish this chapter because I'm so concerned. I have such a Southern Baptist work ethic where I feel like all of this is going to end anytime. So I gotta keep going. Yeah. It's very much a Jonathan Edwards, Cotton Mather sort of dedication. And so, but I do find that there was a period of time where, like early this year, I went to LA and New York in the same week. I've never done anything like that.
That just sounds tiring to
I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in LA, I'm in Orange County. So I fly out of LA and my family's in Pennsylvania. So just even the idea of going back and forth, and then you're not in either of those places, so that means you had to go to both those places. And I'm just going, that sounds and then do you work on the flights because Jonathan Edwards is making you? No, okay.
No, I wait till I get to the hotel room.
Okay, that's at least a little
I will
over
say
it.
this though, going to LA was so much fun. I went for the LA Times Book Awards, and I was nominated. I lost to Megan Abbott, which is I had no shame at all because Megan Abbott is one of the
being
finest
nominated
working today.
with
That's
Megan
enough.
Abbott is just like, that's the dream come true to just have your name next to hers.
Plus,
There's a few. I was just gonna say, there's a
Plus
few
I won it
authors that I think
last year.
you won it last year. They can't humble brag.
It's
One of
also
last
the
year's.
whole, you don't want to make it all about you. Let other people have their moment in the spotlight. That just makes you the bigger person.
Yeah, it was Megan's turn. Just
But I gotta tell you guys the story about our stay at the hotel. So they put up in this hotel in LA, the Biltmore in LA is beautiful. Again, very 1950s LA Confidential, aesthetically pleasing hotel. So we're there for the LA Times Book Festival. At the same time, there's a convention of Bridgerton aficionados who are there. And they're doing like this Bridgerton ball. They're doing like this Bridgerton dance. Everybody's dressed up in Regency stuff. So here's the thing. When you do the Bridgerton ball, apparently it's an all-inclusive package. So when they go to the ball, they're getting free liquor all night. So they come stumbling out of the ball into the hotel bar with their Regency wigs all askew and their halters and their corsets up sideways. And so I'm sitting at the bar. I don't want to say
making me want to go to a Bridgerton ball. That's all I'm saying.
Well, okay, so one of our former guests, Robert Gold, he went to one of those. Did you see those pictures? He went to one, and there was like this picture where he looked like he was in an oil. I have no idea how they did the oil portrait look. Yeah. It was some kind of weird thing. Did they have that? And could you do that even in regular clothes, even if you weren't part of it? Just crash into it.
So we're sitting at the bar. So I got to tell you, we're sitting at the bar, and there's two other writers. I'm not going to name them, two gentlemen. And so these three ladies stumble over from the bridge. You wait till I finish the story. Okay. So these three ladies stumble over from the bridge, and they're talking to us, and they're like, "What do you guys do?" And I was like, "Oh, we're writers. We're here for the LA Times Book Festival." And one of them, she starts on this long rant about how if you want to sell more books, you got to put more sex in your books because that's what women want. And yada yada yada. Then she was like, "And my husband, he doesn't like that I like Bridgerton, but I don't care. He can't satisfy me." It was just the most cringeworthy 10 minutes of my life. And meanwhile, she's dressed in Regency garb. So she's dressed, she looks like one of the ladies in Bridgerton. She's got the whole ensemble on. So
and like the drunk level is probably pretty high.
Yes. And she does the drunk whisper where she thinks she's whispering, but she's yelling. And so she turned to one of the other gentlemen at the bar, and she says to him in what she thought was a whisper, "I'm in room 1125. You should come see me."
After just talking about her husband.
Okay, and I love that we won't know who this person is. So if you were watching this right now and you were in room 1125, we know.
Oh my gosh.
So her friend tries to take her away. Her friend tries to like shut her up, and she's like, "Stop stifling me. This is my truth." It was the funniest thing.
This is my truth. My truth is screaming drunk at three successful writers that they need to put more sex in their books and then propositioning one of them.
And I appreciate that you won't tell us.
It was hilarious.
Those other people were. I'm just curious because having read Razorblade Tears, it is not a spoiler that there is not sex in your book. Like, no, that's not what the books are about. I mean, for people who don't know, it is a story of two fathers grieving the loss of their sons, and that's just not the direction of the story. I want to know whether the other two writers, whether or not they wrote sex in their books, and whether they're like, well, let me just tell you.
No,
I'll write you a sexy
not at all. Because I will say this.
Can you tell us what genre?
So one of them was a children's author. One of them was a children's author, and the other one was a sci-fi author.
Yeah, nothing says sexy like a kid's book.
Yeah, Elephant and Piggy is not an orgy,
yeah,
guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still just mad because we recently saw a movie that like it. Well, I didn't hear you, Sean. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying it was the most hilarious 20 minutes. I loved it. It was great. It was cringy, but at the same time, I couldn't look away. It was like I felt like I was in a dolly.
Exactly.
I feel
No,
like
I
that's
was
like
just
something that would happen in like a weird Quentin Tarantino film where you're like, oh my God, except instead of authors, somebody would be like yelling at a bunch of hitmen.
well,
Yes.
you never know what else they put in there. No, I was just laughing just because we recently saw a movie that could have been family friendly, but the director, writer, whoever opted to use the word orgy like 7 different times. I'm going, well, can't take my 11-year-old to this one now. Because even though it had like different sexualities and things like that, I'm like, I can have the conversation. And I've had the conversation with my 11-year-old about what a person is who is trans. And she understands that, love is love. But I don't need to explain what an orgy is. Like,
You
not
can't explain a pile of people having sex with each other.
And they don't even show it. It's just they just kept talking about it. We're like, how many times are they going to say that? They're going to say it anymore? We're going to be drunk if we were taking shots every time these people said orgy.
So I'll say if I went to a Bridgerton ball and got to drunkenly yell at writers about what I wanted more of in books, I would say I want more wood chipper scenes. I want more. I'm not super into violence, but then I read Razorblade Tears and I was like, ooh, this is like really beautifully written violence. And my husband, who is also not into violence, was like, should I read it? And I was like, how do you feel about the term curb stomping? And he's like, I don't like that.
Like, peacing out right now. I think one of the things that threw me about this book is I expected, based on the premise, to have this book that would be very, I don't even know how to put it, like very bare bones in terms of the prose. So when I get a book that's full on literary and then blended with such violence, I'm like, literary violence, is this a category? It is now. And I loved it. I think that says something very wrong about me.
No, or very right.
Oh, well. Thank you very much.
I was like reading out loud to my husband, which he loves it when I do this, when he's like in the middle of something. And I'm like, let me just read you this line from the middle of this book. It was a line that was, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was a metaphor about the moths being around the lights outside at night, like a moving storm cloud or something like that. And it was so beautiful. And I'm like, I love metaphor.
Yes, you do.
It's my love language. That and like being crushed by a building. Those are my two love languages.
I do that on purpose, though. I do that on purpose because I use a lot of visceral violence in my books. And so to offset that, I do sometimes stray into purplish prose, just sort of
never
cleanse
purple.
the palette, so to speak.
Yeah,
no, but it worked though. But I think I didn't know, because I feel like when you see the description and what people are talking about, it feels like it would be a very bare bones and, like I said, visceral, but then it would just be like these short staccato sentences without those interior feelings, without getting into all of that, because I've just never encountered that before. And in general, you don't see those two things juxtaposed and woven so nicely. And I think that's where we're just throw more words at it, because we don't even know what else to do. Is just say, yes, this is amazing.
Thank you so much.
This is beautiful. So I'm sure whatever you're writing now, as long as it's got a little bit of purple in it, it'll be fine.
A little bit of purple language, a little bit of really
I'm working on now.
Violence.
It's funny, yeah, it's got a lot of bad violence, but you said something earlier that was interesting. So my first two books don't have a lot of intimacy, a lot of sex. Like Blacktop has very chaste, not to be funny, but chaste married people sex. And there's no sex in.
Well, look, we're all married here.
But the book I'm working on now, it's a little more. It's not even so much sexual as I have a. Okay, so basically, the premise of the book I'm working on now is.
Are you going to use the word orgy?
Please don't. Wait, say it again, because
there's an orgy in my. Well, there's an orgy in the book I wrote that's being re-released in December called My Darkest Prayer. So there's a whole
so all the orgy fans
but Sean Cosby, he writes something for everyone.
The book I'm working on now is called All the Sinners Bleed, and it's about this guy named Titus Crown. He's the first black sheriff in a small town, and there is a violent incident at the high school which uncovers a series of serial murders. And so he's trying to. There's a trio of serial killers. There's a teacher, a former student, and a mystery person. And as the book begins, the teacher and the former student are deceased, or have something happens that they are deceased. And so our sheriff is trying to find the third member of this triumvirate. but also he has a very complicated past. He used to be an FBI agent. He resigned under inauspicious circumstances. He came home and ran for sheriff. So his ex-girlfriend shows up. She's a true crime podcaster. He has a new girlfriend, but
yes.
their relationship, is not as, how can I say this nicely? Their relationship is not as intense.
Oh, yeah.
Their relationship is not as intense intimately as he would like. And so he has this dark side of himself who is
okay. Does he have like weird?
It's a little more vanilla than he would like, and he just likes biting. And so
you're so cute. You were just like shy about it. He likes biting. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's not the whole point of the book, but it is.
See, I'm putting up Lori.
I use it to show.
That's so fun. And what's amazing is this is not what she's responding to, but I can make it look like that's what she's responding to.
Biting. That's so fun.
Sorry, Lori.
Hey, Lori's a thriller writer.
No, I love that. And I love that you're like,
character
now you can. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the character is going through a lot of different changes.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say the character is going through a lot of different changes as he's trying to solve this crime, as he's dealing with everyday small town corruption and conflicts, and so it is very much a book inspired by my experiences growing up Southern Baptist and sort of the hypocrisy of religion in small towns, but also the importance of spirituality. I have a very simple idea that I don't like organized religion, but I'm okay with spirituality. And so it's sort of him kind of navigating that. But it's got a lot of dark imagery. It's a lot of, there's somebody that gets, there's a murder victim that gets bloody eagled, if you know what that means. So there's a lot.
Don't Google
I feel like I do know what that means, but I'm not going to say.
Don't Google it if you don't know.
No,
I think I know what it is.
Now I'm gonna, but like on an incognito tab just in case, so it doesn't ever show up in my search history.
No, my search history is disgusting. It doesn't matter.
I just need you to say in the dedication for this next book that it's dedicated to the woman in room 1125 of the Biltmore Hotel. This is for you, babe.
This is for you. Those sex scenes are all
for
up. You. And Bridgerton fans everywhere.
I'm going to use that in the book.
Yes.
I wonder if Bridgerton fans know what that eagled term means. I'm guessing it's not in Regency romance.
It's probably not. I don't read it, but I feel like it would be a weird cross. So what's funny is we recently had on Josh Mallerman, and he also talked about Bridgerton, not the Bridgerton balls, but Bridgerton became part of our interview because he and I became weirdly obsessed with Bridgerton for like a week. And he would like message me at like 2 a.m. and he's like, I just watched 6 episodes in a row. I'm crying. I'm like, what have we become? We're horror writers.
See, and the only thing I know about Bridgerton, besides everybody's into it, is one of my dear writing besties who lives in the UK. She dressed up as Penelope from Bridgerton, so I can name one character, that one. And then more recently, she's dressing up as Eddie Munson from Stranger Things, and was having me ship her things that she got on Etsy that could only ship to the US. So I'm like shipping it to her in the UK to get because the place won't ship there, and it costs so much money to ship a pin this big. It's a racket.
It's worth it to have really accurate cosplay.
I needed this one, and I almost wanted to ship her our pallbearer ones because it felt like it would belong. But I'm like, first off, I'm not getting rid of those. Those are mine from that.
Those are very precious.
Those are. But I'm also like, but would Eddie Munson know that? And then it wouldn't work for the character. And cosplay is very, very specific. I don't fully understand it, but it's.
I got to hang out. I got to hang out with Josh. I got to hang out with Josh Mallerman earlier this year at a Scares That Care event, ArthurCon in Williamsburg, Virginia. Yeah, and that is an experience. You have to.
I feel
you have to be prepared to go have a drink with Josh.
He is one of our favorite guests that we've had on the show and every time we've had him on the show has run like crazy long. The last time it was almost 2 hours. He brought a bottle of bourbon. And it was just so hilarious because I finished my drink like at the normal time in the show that you would finish a drink, and then he's got a bottle, and then Allison had her bottle, and then I'm like, I don't have a bottle, and then my amazing husband came and just like off camera handed me a bottle of bourbon, and yeah, even just like doing that on like the internet with Josh was an experience.
You survived the in person.
You survived the in person. I really want to meet him in person.
He's very cool to have a drink with. Yeah, he's very cool to have a drink with, but just be prepared to have lots of drinks. Plural.
Drinks.
Plus.
Well, and I'm assuming
he's a great guy. He's so
based on the genres, I'm guessing he was not one of the people who was approached by 1125. I'm just going to call her that from now on. The 1125 woman here in LA.
No,
1125. No.
But I normally I like Dreamcast books, but now I'm also kind of like Dreamcasting who these authors were. So I'm like, I've got Mo Willems and then James S.A. Corey, which doesn't work because that's two people. So it's getting more ridiculous. That's just propositioning both of them.
I don't know any children's book authors.
I do because I have children, but
I know
I don't
you
know.
do. That's why I'm like, who could it possibly be? It can't be Louisa May Alcott.
Well, and like one of my daughter's favorites is Chris Colfer, who was on Glee, and I'm positive he would not have been interested in whatever that woman said because I'm pretty sure he is not interested in any women.
It wasn't Chris Colfer.
No, but so Dreamcasting, normally I don't get a big tip off on what somebody looks like a broke down Sam Elliott, like in Razorblade Tears, which I just love because then I'm sitting there going, well. And I told my husband that, and he's like, but he's already pretty old. So what do you do to him to make him worse? I'm like, well, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Just not so much old as in he's seen better days and isn't taking care of any of his internal organs. And I'm talking about Buddy Lee. But do you have like a picture in mind for any of the people you'd want to play any of these roles?
Or can you not talk about it because it's actually in discussion?
It's casting, and we're like, shh, we can't talk about it. Because I'm sitting there
I can talk about it because
tell me anyway.
Yeah.
I can talk about it because they don't consult me about the casting, so it's fine. When I was writing the book,
mm-hmm.
In my mind, I had visualized Ving Rhames as Ike, and there's an actor named John Hawkes. But there's an actor named John Hawkes who was in a movie called Winter's Bone a while back. He played the character Teardrop, and I visualized him as Buddy Lee. To me, he's the perfect Buddy Lee because he's slim and he's got that sort of raw bone look, but he's also dangerous. He can exude a sense of danger, and so that was the actor I had in mind. But I'll tell you, some of the names that have been bandied about are pretty cool.
Tell us the names.
Kelly Hitchcock wants Idris Elba, and I'm assuming for Ike. I don't see him as that, but the person I want, I think, is still too young because I want Mike Coulter, and he's too young. I think.
I don't know who that is. I weirdly thought Idris
I think he's
Elba
a little. Too. He was Luke Cage from. He was Luke Cage in the Luke Cage series. No,
but he's too young because I think
talked about Denzel Washington for Ike.
And that wouldn't suck.
And they talked about
he's a great actor, so you want to take that. You want to take the name, but I don't think that's the right fit.
What did you say? Were they saying for Buddy Lee?
Oh, they were thinking about Matthew McConaughey for Buddy Lee.
Oh, that would be good.
Mama like
he can do the danger, and he's got the cheekbones. Like there's like this almost skeletal bit to Buddy Lee. Like his flesh is kind of not doing so good anymore, and possibly because all of his organs are. I mean, we don't know which of his organs are failing, but at least some of them are not.
I feel like all.
If you could get
all,
if you could get Matthew McConaughey like not as bad as Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah, that was a bit much.
A little bit better than True Detective in that middle ground there.
I was just about to say it's Matthew McConaughey between Dallas Buyers Club and True Detective is Buddy Lee.
On the emaciated scale. Like there's certain things I've seen actors go to extremes where I'm just worried for their internal organs.
We don't need someone to pull a Christian Bale and like 80 pounds.
I'm still worried about after seeing Adam Driver in The Silence. I'm like, someone should have been feeding him sandwiches on set because he was scaring me. And I'm going, you don't recover from that. You just start killing off organs. It's not good.
I feel like if you had Razorblade Tears, starring Denzel Washington and Matthew McConaughey, you can already guarantee the Best Picture nomination.
Well, yeah. And that's why you don't say no if they want to put Denzel Washington in it, even if it doesn't, he's not big enough.
Yeah.
Has he ever been bald? I've never seen him bald. Has he played a character?
He was bald in Equalizer.
Oh, yeah. Ving Rhames, though, once you said that, that's a really great choice.
No, that's a better choice. And well, and like I said, Mike Coulter is too
That's
young.
what I was visualizing in my head.
Right. And usually is bald. But again, you'd have to have him be like, can we put some age makeup on you to make you, but it's not like I necessarily remember a specific age. Okay, how many years has he done Hard Time? He has to look like he's done some Hard Time and then come out, because one of the things that's amazing about these characters is they aren't like when I knew, oh, they're ex-cons, I'm picturing guys who just got out of prison, and that's not where they are in life. So you've got to have somebody who can channel, yes, I'm an upstanding citizen now, but then turn back to, oh, but you really don't want to mess with
Don't F with him. Right. Do not F with Ike, man.
Men not to be trifled with.
Men not to be trifled with.
As a Western
I will say, and this is I'm saying this as a compliment. Buddy Lee I loved him. I'll just say I love Buddy Lee. He was a difficult character at times. You wrote him, you understand. There were times that he reminded me of my dad, and that made me have to do a lot of self-reflection about like when I was growing up.
Okay, but he did for me too, and here's why. He's the guy who doesn't know when to stop joking, who it's like almost like, okay, this is not the time to be making that wise, and that's my dad. My dad's the one where we're like, Dennis, you're gonna get shot. You gotta stop doing this. You
read the room.
Pull back, dude. Pull back. But he doesn't look.
I will say with Buddy Lee, his humor is a defense mechanism. It's how he processes his grief, his fear. There's a line in the book though that really. I don't know if you guys do this, but I never really make myself laugh. Like when I'm writing humor or I'm trying to write something humorous, I know something is funny. I might chuckle to myself. That's a good one. I'm like, there's a line I wrote I don't want to give anything away. There's a line I wrote when Buddy Lee is confronting the main villain of Razorblade Tears, and he tells him something that the villain doesn't know that Buddy Lee knows. And Buddy Lee says, because I'm what you call an ally. And I laughed out loud when I wrote that.
That was very funny.
I loved that.
Buddy Lee only learned what an ally was maybe a day earlier.
I know. Buddy Lee realized he was an ally 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But that's what made me love him even more.
I thought that was funny.
Okay. Yeah, you're an ally now.
When is the last time, and I don't know if I ever have read a book or even watched a movie where you have somebody who's going through a big action-packed scene or just an action-packed journey, and then they're actually still also having emotional growth, because it feels like we're doing one or the other, not both. And you're like, no, we have time for all of this in this book. We're going to make sure that these characters feel real and they're dynamic, and that you're not going to root for them just because, oh, well, of course you're going to root for them because their sons died, and that's sad. But that you start investing in who they are as people, and that they're conflicted people, that they aren't always making the right decisions. And honestly, some of my favorite violence was violence that was non-lethal violence, just on people who, like, one of the early confrontational scenes. One of them is just knocking stuff over in a place. And like, I've always wanted to do that too.
Oh I know that like fulfilled.
I know the scene you're talking about. I know the scene you're talking about. Yeah, I think for me,
we all have that fantasy of just like knocking everything over.
Sorry, Sean's
I think
laughing.
for me writing it, I wanted to show that the violence that they both visit upon their enemies isn't just violence for violence sake. You know, it's an expression of grief. You know, there's an old Roman proverb that revenge is a confession of pain. And, you know, they're in incredible pain. So when they act violent, that's the only way they know how to communicate. Now, as the book goes on, they learn to communicate better with others and each other. But in the beginning, they're just, you know, they're wild dogs off the chain. And as you get closer to the end, they learn to communicate with each other, with the people around them. They learn empathy, and they understand that they've made mistakes. But I think redemption is not a gift. Nobody can give you redemption. Redemption is something you have to work on for yourself. It's like It's like putting together a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle in the dark. You kind of just have to feel your way through it. No one can do that for you. And I thought
that's
I tried to do this really good. I tried to do this good job. Hopefully, I did a good job of giving Buddy Lee and Ike the pieces they needed to sort of solve that puzzle for themselves.
Yeah, and you didn't. I'll say this is what I really respected about the book you're writing is you didn't make it easy for them.
Mm-mm.
There was even, you know, as the book is going along, you can still see them taking one step forward and then sometimes 3 steps back and going, oh, I thought you had changed. No, you haven't changed yet. What I love, and I know I've talked about this on our show a lot, like I really love books about grief. I don't know why. I write books about grief. It's something that I find incredibly powerful. And I came back to that saying when I started reading your book that grief is just a manifestation of unexpressed love.
Yeah.
And I felt like that so much with your characters because they had these relationships with their sons that were not ideal, especially for the sons. But it didn't stop them from realizing once their boys were gone, just what was lost within themselves.
I think
within
grief is the price we pay
for just loving.
There's a quote from Queen Elizabeth that says, "Grief is the price we pay for love." You know, and I thought that really was their situation. And it's funny you said about grief. I think grief takes multiple levels and multiple phases. Whether it's the grief for someone who's passed on or grief for someone that's lost. Like I look at my books, Blacktop Wasteland is really about grief. It's about the grief of a son who lost his father. The father's not dead, as far as we know, but he's not there. And then Razorblade, obviously, it's a very visceral grief for the actual dead children who have lost their lives. And the book I'm working on now, the ghost of grief hangs over this character, Titus. It's, you know, his mother died when he was young, when he was like 12 or 13 of this very rare disease. His father loves him, but he's also kind of distant. He doesn't know how to communicate. So he's back in town. He's the sheriff. He's committed to not law and order, but order as a way to combat chaos, you know, because the universe is this cruel, unfeeling place. And so as a law enforcement officer, he feels like if I can put order to this chaos, you know, I have a line in the book I wrote where order became his new religion. And so the journey that he takes, is learning to let go of that, you know, that you can't, as my mom would say, if you want to make God laugh, make a plan. And so you have to learn to let go of that, and you can't control everything. Now, I put him through a lot of shit to get to that point. There's serial murders, and there's people getting bloody eagled, and there's an animal nailed to his door at one point. He goes through a lot of stuff.
Oh no,
Sean! You just heard Jen.
Sean, I mean, it's okay.
It's not a dog or a cat. It's not a dog or a cat.
Okay.
It doesn't make it much better unless it's a piece of like already fried chicken, like in a strip, and then it's just your meal delivery from Uber, and I'm okay with that. But Jen's a vegetarian, so she's
let's go with that. We'll just
it was food.
We'll just say that's what it is.
Food. It's fine.
It was food. It was
we'll
fine.
Just say that's what
we're laughing because next week we've got is it next week? I think it's next week.
It is next week.
We've got Chandra Bloomberg coming on, and her book is a rom-com, but it features barbecue, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna eat ribs on the show, and Jen's like, I cannot watch you eat meat on the show. I'm like, fine, I'll just have like a bottle of barbecue sauce. I'll eat it afterwards. But she's like, I cannot handle the meat. I'm gonna. Like,
I can handle some meat, but
meat.
When I was little, you know, my parents were older parents. My mother was raised in the South. My dad was raised on a farm in New Hampshire, but then he did his basic training in the South, and he had a lot of there was a lot of red meat going on in our house, is all I'm going to say. And I have a very, like, one of my core memories is sitting at our kitchen table trying to eat meat and crying and saying, I can hear this tastes like cow's tears.
Oh, Jen, I'm sorry.
And my parents,
are
like, you don't waste food. You're sitting here until it's done. And I'm like, oh my God.
The cow.
I can taste the cow crying.
I had a really well. When we get to that part in the book, just skip over it. I'll tell you what page it is.
It's fine.
I'll read ahead, Jim. When the book's out, I'll read ahead, and
you can get back to the. You can get back to the serial killer victims getting
with that.
But
I've killed
Like
an animal in
bodies
a book
curb stomp
before.
fine, but the minute she's like, oh no, they hurt it, they hurt the poor sweet moo cow.
I killed an animal in one of my books. I still feel bad about that.
I had a conversation. I had a really cool conversation on. I had a really cool conversation on Twitter about a month or two, maybe 3 months now, where I started a thread about writers who are born in the South, in rural areas, and why does it seem like our books are so much more naturalistically visceral, you know? And there was a writer named Laura McHugh who wrote a book called What Was Done in Darkness. Beautiful, great book, really nice, really incredible thriller. And she said, because growing up in the South, growing up in rural areas, there's a thin veil between life and death for you. You know, if your dog gets sick and you're poor in a rural area, you're not gonna take him to the vet because you can't afford to take yourself to the doctor. You know, and she said she had this line that I thought was really great, and I asked her, could I steal it for my next book? She's like,
may I
either
use that as
you grew
my
up poor in the
own?
South. Yeah, but she had this line that when you grow up poor in a rural area, you know, like chopping wood isn't a rustic affectation. You know, you either chop wood or you freeze to death. And so I think rural writers who grew up in it, and I'm talking about Donald Ray Pollock, Laura McHugh, Daniel Woodrell, William Gay, Jessamine Ward, David Joy, writers who grew up in that environment, our fiction is very visceral, very naturalistic, where the veil between life and death is very thin, especially if you grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm for a while, and so I learned very quickly not to get attached to animals. As an adult, I'm a pescatarian. I don't really eat a lot of meat. I used to have to hunt when I was a kid, and I remember the last day I went hunting. My grandfather and I were hunting rabbits, and I had a 22 rifle, little pea shooter rifle, and I shot at this rabbit and I hit him, but I didn't kill him. And I was I was devastated. I was just sick to my stomach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what
and my
happened to the
grandfather
bunny?
was like,
My grandfather was
like, you gotta put him out of his misery. And I was I was like 12 or 13. I was like, I can't do it.
You're just a kid.
And he says, you owe him that respect to put him out of his misery.
Yeah.
And it just stuck with me. And I was like, after that, I never went hunting again because I didn't feel I was worthy of an animal's respect to take its life. And so I stopped.
That's heartbreaking on like every level.
But
no, I get it. You know, I have
but I think that's a part of being.
Yeah, I have a great friend who grew up on a goat farm, and he is a vegetarian now, but he said the same thing. He's like, growing up poor and all you have are goats. He's like, you learn. When he was real little, he was like, these are our pets. Why do they keep disappearing? But then by the time he was like 6, and they're like, out there, your job is to, you know, hold it down while he's like, this is where the pets go? And they're like, honey, these are not pets.
Where the pets go.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I'm fascinated with that idea. Like even, I was just gonna say, I'm fascinated with that idea. Like even on the other side of it, when you're growing vegetables, you're growing up, working a farm, whether you're raising corn or beans or whatever, how you have to work the earth, how the natural world is such a big part of your life. It influences your writing, your creativity. It's a big part of my life. You know, you never forget the smell of manure. No. So
no, I grew up not on a farm, but we had a little tiny house. I guess people now would call it like a shack or a cabin, we'll say. Real little, a bungalow would be the nice words. And we had a lot of land, and all that land was just all garden because my parents both grew up real poor, and they were just like into, I guess, stockpiling. So we would just grow as much food as we possibly can it, keep it in the basement, you know.
Well, that was probably also a result of the Depression too, because of the era they came out of.
Yeah, my dad.
Yeah, and that all that whatever you're growing up with, you get used to it, and then if you aren't used to it, so like flip side for me, my mom's dad was a United Methodist pastor, and they didn't have a whole lot of meat, so he would go shoot things because that's the only way they'd be able to put meat on the table, because that's pretty much all they had. And then me growing up in California and going to go visit and going down to the basement where all the heads are on the wall and freaking out because we completely divorced from that out here. Completely urban upbringing. I'm like, what the?
You're like, we live in Disneyland.
I know. Well, not in Disneyland, but next to Disneyland, where all the animals are animated, pretty much. So very, very different. So very night and day. Going, you ate what as a child, Mom? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, squirrel pie.
My mom's stories of growing up, because she grew up in like Little Havana outside of Miami, and her family was French. They didn't speak any English. They moved down there because her father was in the Air Force and he got a job fixing planes. But they had no money, 6 kids, and then her mother got in a terrible car accident, was in the hospital for many years. This is all getting to the point where the stories that she would tell me about how they got food when she was little were just like, it was so hard to like wrap my head around. She was like, oh no, we would pick through the neighbor's garbage to eat their potato peels. Or we would, you know, scrape the slimy fat out of the cans of Spam, and we would put that in water, and that was soup. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder you sat there and made me eat the hamburger that tasted like the cow's tears. Like, I don't blame them for that. I'm not like,
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things.
4-year-old vegetarian.
It stays with you though. It stays with you. It's like, I mean, now I'm at a point in my life where, and I want to say this in a way that doesn't sound,
bougie,
as you said earlier, bougie. But the book,
we were quoting you.
Done really
I was
well.
the post you,
Sean.
Yeah, I know. Nothing worse than growing up poor in the South and somebody accusing you of being bougie. That's the worst insult ever. But I will say this: I'm at a point in my life where I have, you know, I can pretty much go to the grocery store and get anything I want. But I have that PTSD from growing up poor, and so it took my wife a long time to get me to stop stockpiling butter beans. Like, we don't need all these lima beans. It's like,
but I do really like butter beans, and my kids don't understand what they are. Like, people out here don't know what butter beans are. That's something like,
I was like, no,
they're delicious.
I was
they're
like,
so
we can
good.
take these butter beans. I was like, we can take these butter beans and add rice to them. We can make a meal that lasts for days. I'm like, no, we're gonna be all right. It's okay. It's fine. And so I think that sticks with you. But I also think it informs your writing too.
It does. I hate to say, you know, my husband grew up in Russia. They did not have money. I grew up poor. And like, there are times that, especially when we're on vacation, we just have to stop going, nope, we can spend the money and each get a cocktail at dinner instead of going like, let's split one appetizer and let's like find a store and buy booze and we'll just smuggle it in a water bottle. And we're like, no, we can buy a cocktail. Where we live now, we live in very, very rural New Hampshire, and it's got a lot of land that we're not prepared for. And we had to like hire a landscaper. And I was just like, that the words "I hired a landscaper" came out of my mouth, and I was like, I hate myself. I hate myself. And I'm like, that's the day the landscaper comes. Oh, I hear my father turning over in his grave.
So
that class shame that comes with it, like, you know, like I felt like such a failure when I stopped cutting our grass because I just was so busy. I'm still so busy with the books that we had to hire this kid to cut the grass, and I was like, I don't deserve to live in this house. I'm not cutting the grass.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm sure you're teaching that, especially if it's a kid, he's learning entrepreneurial skills and all that stuff. And meanwhile, like, so we live in a place that's rented, and they have a gardener that we have no communication with it because it's all in the landlord's joints. And they keep pulling out and killing the pretty wildflowers that are growing in our planter. And my kids are now scared to plant their little seeds for radishes. Like, the mean gardeners. I'm like, I'm sorry, they're just doing their job. But maybe if we put a little sign saying, these are radishes, please don't.
Yeah,
they're not weeds. We're trying to grow something, and we all have brown thumbs, so they're not going to grow anyway. But we could try. We grew like one zucchini last year. It was shaped like this.
But you know, I think I'm very grateful for my childhood, even though we were poor and there was hard times. But I think I'm able to tap into that. I understand my characters in a way that I think is painfully authentic. because I understand.
Yeah.
Crime fiction, like horror fiction, is the gospel of the desperate. It's the gospel of the dispossessed. And
Oh my God, that
I
makes me want
think
to
if
cry.
you've
That was
been
so
there,
beautiful.
you know, oh wow,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, I'm
But if
like,
you've been there,
oh.
you've been with your back against the wall, yeah, you understand your characters. You understand people that feel like I have no other choice but to do this. Or I have no, and if you look at horror fiction, I have no other choice but to survive. I have to go through these vampires, these werewolves, these zombies, this demonic possession because I'm going to survive. If being poor didn't take me down, and I'm not going to let, Beelzebub or Baphomet take me down. And so I think because I believe
Baphomet.
crime fiction, I believe crime
I just
fiction
typed it
and
up.
horror fiction are kissing cousins. That's not my original quote. That's a quote from a writer named Ed Kurtz. Ed Kurtz, if he's listening or anybody knows Ed Kurtz, he came up with that. So
I feel like we hear that phrase a lot though on the show. I mean, I feel like Paul Tremblay has said it. I feel like Matherman has probably said it. I think Joe Lansdale has said it. I think like all of these people are like, they're kissing cousins. They're the same
Sean,
thing.
who said crime fiction is the gospel of the desperate? Who said that?
Sean did.
No, but he said somebody else came up with it.
Oh no, he said the kissing
Oh
cousins.
no, I said that crime and horror are kissing cousins.
Yeah.
But
no, Sean came up with the one.
I heard Ed Kurtz say that at a bar in Delaware one night.
No,
I heard Ed Kurtz say that at a bar in Delaware one night.
Nice.
But,
God,
well, so do you have a date for when the next book comes out? I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Hopefully it will be done at the end of this month. I'm very close. Like I'm looking at my board. I have 9 more. Let me plug my computer in. I have 9 more plot points to do. Hold on one second.
I like how while Sean's down, we can see the awards behind him. I can't see what they say, and it could be any of them because he's
yeah.
back there.
He's like, this is my brag wall.
I don't have the technical skills to like zoom in from this
side. You want to hear something really pretentious? You want to hear something really?
Yes.
You want to hear something really pretentious? I had to put them up here, these 2 awards, because I don't have room in the rest of my office.
Too many awards. Oh, my trophy case is full.
The trophy case broke because there were just so many.
There's so many. Get another case.
But
get another case, Sean. Sean, just get another shelf. You can do that now.
You can afford the cocktail.
I know.
Evelyn.
You can afford the nice hotel.
No,
you can afford the boy to mow your lawn. Get a shelf. You have our permission.
I started out wanting to write horror fiction, and I've been very lucky. I started out wanting to write horror fiction when I first started writing stories, and I found crime fiction as sort of my calling. But I've been lucky. I've been able to write some horror stories. I have a story coming out in a Joe Lansdale tribute later this year.
Oh, I was gonna.
I have a story in.
You have a story coming out in other terrors.
I have
other terrors.
Other terrors, which is great.
Yeah.
That's a great anthology.
I literally just got this
so many
yesterday.
Good people.
That's why I'm like, what? You're in this?
So many great writers in that book that I've admired for a long time. So I'm very honored to be in that book with them. I have a story out in Orphans of Bliss, which is an anthology of addiction themed horror. And I've got I got another horror story coming out. I got one coming out, but I can't say what it is yet. But I've got another short story coming out that's horror themed. And no, I just been.
You can just message that to us later.
And I think, yeah. But I've just been very lucky, and I'm very blessed that the books have, the people have connected with what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to say. My mom used to say, "The shine wears off a new pennies really quick," and so I'm trying to appreciate all this now because I know it won't always last. And I'm just very, very thankful for people to have connected with the books to understand what I'm trying to say.
You're not a penny. If anything, you're my favorite coin, which is a dime.
You're a silver dollar. You're one of the fancier ones.
You're a fancy coin. You're like a collector's coin.
I know nothing about this. My kid came back from a short beach retreat with a little coin that lets her take a shower. So that's a pretty good one too.
I thought you were going to say for some reason, lets her take a shot. And I'm like, she's
No,
only
a shower.
10.
No, she came back with it. She's like, oh, the showers were cold and it was dark in there. So I gave one away and kept one as a souvenir. I'm like, that's my kid. Didn't take a shower.
Didn't shower. You smell like garbage, but welcome home.
She was only gone a couple days and she took a shower because she was still sandy when she came home. So I'm like, off you go. We live near the beach. So there you go. But yeah, you're not a penny. So I understand what you're saying, but you're not some flash in the pan or flash in the penny. Is that a thing? Flash in the penny.
Flash in the penny should be a thing. I feel like that is a daytime stripper name if I've ever heard one.
I appreciate it.
Sean is not a daytime stripper.
But no, the book I'm working on now is very much the book I'm working on now. The book I'm working on now is very much sort of horror influenced. It's I like to tell people it's True Detective meets Justified. But in the South,
you started describing it did sound like another season of True Detective, but I didn't want to say that.
Those are all the words.
No, because I saw the first one and everybody said the second season was totally downhill, so I never saw it. So I didn't know if I wanted to say True Detective.
The third season's really great.
Because I heard it was like, I didn't even know there was a third season.
The third season's really good.
Oh, it's so good.
I'll have to go looking for it.
Because that first season, I tell you what,
so good.
It is that first season is such a powerful. It's an 8-hour movie. It's just an incredible.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. But then we didn't bother with the second one because everyone was saying it was just a huge drop off and disappointment. And we're like, let's just leave good enough alone and walk away.
Yeah, the first season was probably one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Third season was so different and amazing and heartbreaking. And I mean, gosh, if you just throw Alzheimer's and crime and add those things together, you're just like, oh my God, I'm in for a total mind fuck. And it'll break your heart at the same time. It'll break your heart.
There's something about rural horror and crime that is incredibly emotionally plaintive. It just reaches out and grabs you. There's something about like being on a dark country road at like 1 o'clock in the morning and it's full dark and no stars, and then you see a car approaching with one headlight. It's just the most terrifying thing I can ever.
Whatever you do, don't blink your headlights at them, or you just like see that farmhouse at the very end of like a really long dirt road.
Nope,
and
don't
just
stop.
like, God, nothing good is going on in there. Nothing good happens there.
There will be no positive outcomes from that at all.
Especially when you see, where you're like, oh, it's weird that they have all this land, but none of it's being farmed. First clue that something bad is happening. Why are the lights on at 3 a.m.? Other bad clue.
Yeah.
And as soon as you said full dark, no stars, that's one of the Stephen King short story collections that has some of the most disturbing stuff I'd ever read. I'm like, where's the happy stuff? Where's the guy who wrote The Stand? Nope, none of that. I'd rather take the end of the world than this. Thank you.
It's bad when The Stand is the feel-good book.
It was a feel-good book.
Got a happy ending.
Sort of. Enough.
I have one last question. It's about the new book, All the Sinners Bleed. So your first Black detective in this small town, sheriff, I shouldn't say. He has two kind of girlfriends. One of them is a true crime podcaster. Is that a white lady?
No, she's Filipino. She's Filipino and Black.
All right. I'm like, is that
one girlfriend?
A white woman?
No, but I did do that thing where his hometown girlfriend is African American. The true crime podcaster is Filipino and Black, and I did that thing where he kind of still likes her a little, but she's so aggressive with her true crime podcasting. So aggressive.
Look, I get that.
Nerves about it.
Yeah, I have also been told I'm annoying.
We have had an author on who has that same ethnic background, but she is not a true crime writer. So I'm pretty sure this is not your inspiration. She writes sweet romance, but just check.
No.
The true crime community is a very specific community.
What I wanted to do, I'll say real quick, what I wanted to do with the two girlfriends was really sort of articulate the two halves of his personality, right? With his hometown girlfriend, he's this really strong, forthright, dependable, solid guy. He's a good dude. And with his ex-girlfriend from when he was an FBI agent stationed in Indiana, he lets his sort of his love of order kind of slip, and he becomes very with her. He says at one point when he was with her, he felt like he was feral, and so they're like the two sides of his personality.
Oh,
and so there's a scene where he first sees her show up at the sheriff's office, and she's talking to some of the deputies, and he reminisces about when they were together, and she's wearing a leather jacket over a white t-shirt, and she has long black hair, and he's thinking about how under that hair, under that jacket, under that t-shirt is a full piece back tattoo.
Oh,
and
I thought you were going to say bite marks.
And across the top, I'm getting there, because across the top of the tattoo it says "Doubt thou the stars of fire," but across the bottom of the tattoo it says "But never doubt I love." And he reminisces about kissing her and biting her on the tattoo, on the words. And so there's this sort of dark side of himself with her, and sort of this chase side of himself with his current girlfriend. And that's sort of the duality he's going through. He wants to make everything right. He wants to save everybody. He wants to fix everything, but that's not possible. And so this story is really about him coming to that understanding. While also he's sort of anti-religion, because his mom died and she was sort of kind of into faith healing, and so she didn't go to the doctor when she should have. So he has this sort of animosity toward religion, which I totally understand and get.
I'm sorry, I made a total face when you said that, because I'm like, oh no, that's my growing up.
Yeah, mine too. And so I want him to get to a place where he's not concerned about organized religion, but he can accept spirituality. There's a really cool thing that's going to happen at the end, and I can't tell you yet.
Don't tell us.
Anyway,
9 plot points.
I'm having fun. I'm having fun writing this book. It's been fun. It's very enjoyable. I really leaned into my Southern Gothic verbiage and syntax. So, I get to talk about magnolia trees and Spanish moss.
Oh my God. Yes. If you need early readers, Allison and I would gladly just take that risk.
What a risk.
No risk.
Even if it's not as good as Razorblade Tears. It's going to be amazing.
I think the only one who's worried about that right now is Sean, and understandably so. When you're like, I can't stand up, the metals are weighing me down, and my walls are full of. I understand that it's a lot of pressure, and each book's done better, and you're like, well, how can it possibly do better than this? Because this was amazing, but you're just gonna have to dust off that penny and keep going, keep shining.
After this next book, you have to go completely off the rails and do something like a YA choose your own adventure.
Children's books.
No, I was going to say YA so you can get
Funny you said that.
What?
Funny you said that. I can't say anything yet, but funny you said that.
The choose your own adventure part or the YA part? Or just do something with your hat if it's choose your own adventure.
No, it's the other part. It's the YA part. So I'm working on something. Yeah.
Well, that's
in collaboration
I feel like that,
with somebody else. So
this is exciting pre news we're hearing. I feel like on that note we should end, because or else at this point Allison and I will start badgering you for things
no, because they're just like, so was this what was happening at the bar before 11:25 showed up? And you're like,
I know, is this a collaboration with a children's author? That's weird. Is it Regency? Does it take place twice?
No.
Just curious.
No. But thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much. It's been obviously a pleasure. We adore you. We adore your work. We adore your career. We adore your quote unquote overnight success, even though we know it took 20-something years for your overnight success. Totally. We're very much looking forward to All the Sinners Bleed. So, there's a big comment. I can't read it. I don't have my glasses.
Elisa Bonschelman says, "Thank you, Sean. You always make me laugh, and think in the best ways. Congrats on everything, and I look forward to all that is to come. Vixens, congrats on 100 episodes, and here's to the hundreds to come."
Yeah, 100 episodes.
Yes.
Who would have thought?
Congratulations.
Man,
congratulations on 100 episodes. Thank you for having me.
Allison is now one of my longest relationships I've ever had in my life.
Probably because we've never been in the same state, let alone like ever actually, you know.
I know. The second she meets me, in
You
real
gotta
life,
do what
she'd be
works.
like,
I know,
"What,
it
psycho?"
works.
We know
You gotta
this
do what works.
Candace. So
Thank you guys.
thank you, everyone.
I'm gonna go. I love you guys.
Yep. Love you.
Thank you so
Everyone else,
much.
tune in next week when we have Chandra Bloomberg with her book Stirring Up Love. I have it right here.
Do you have yours? Mine,
What?
I don't know where mine got moves.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Click
Y'all
like
too.
and